Okay, hi everybody. We're back.
Wait.
Okay, we're waiting for the introduction. Oh my gosh. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. We're back, everybody. I feel like a little kid that just started school, even though I was just saying that I really don't like school. But it's fine. Everybody's transitioning, and I really missed all of you. I feel like I have so many. I know I kind of missed you, Sarah. I know. Well, Sarah gets a shout out. Welcome back.
Gabbai Sarah.
I got Gabbai Sarah. Sarah's my Gabbai. She records everything. Some people took over. We had Gabbai Shani's over some time. Yeah, I know. But everybody, all the night people are back. Okay, so I feel like I'm putting out cold seltzers. But next week we'll have tea. We should have some warm tea. It's getting cold. And a special shout out to Gabs Wise and Brittany. These are my city girls, so I'll tell you a little bit. I think my city girls, they're my friend. There's so many things happening, and I think that it's the beginning of the school year, but for me it's super exciting. So if you did not know, I used to teach in the city. This is my city time. This is my kavua time for the last 15 years. I've been teaching in the city in Olami, Manhattan. It was the JC, it was Birthright Israel Alumni. Do you even know that one?
Yeah.
Birthright Israel Alumni, then it became R Manhattan, then Olami Manhattan. But it was just the same thing. My gig changed up a little bit. I used to do much more trips, but teaching. And every year when it came to that time, I was always from the beginning of the year, I would have a talk with my boss and be okay, I got this. And I've had many children while I was teaching there. And it was always I was just part of the family. I was just part of the wall. People came and went. My husband worked there for 7 years and he left. And in the Kirov world, it was this, I felt this was my duty, this was my job. But honestly, you guys now have trumped that. So, but literally, I feel this was the first time where I wasn't leaving teaching and leaving Kirov. I also don't discriminate. There's no Kirov Krovim, Kirov Rechokim anymore. There's no difference. It's we have to bring Mashiach, so however we're going to do it, we do it. And last Friday, I had this conversation with my boss, and we're going back and forth, and he's okay, Faigy, you coming back? I'm coming back. And actually, I do owe a little bit to Rabbi Nachman, because my plan this year was to teach Rabbi Nachman there, so to learn Likutei Moharan. So if anybody wants, I'm looking for a chavrusa to learn Likutei Moharan, so raise your hands. Because I still have my duty to Tanya. So that was my plan, and then I was going to do Tuesday night Tanya, and then get through the rest of the week. Somehow, I don't know, I felt Thursday night, it was a little rough for people, and for me, and my Shabbos was slowly starting to get less and less because of Tanya. So I'm no, we're going to do it Tuesday night, it's going to be good. And then right before Shabbos last week, I was having a conversation with my husband, and I was just do you think maybe now's the time I could just transition from that to just doing Tanya here in the house? And I was you know what? I was told you're not supposed to make decisions after Chatzos. So I was oh wait, I'm gonna go to the aisle, Motzei Shabbos, and I'll write a letter and speak to the Rebbe and ask him what he thinks. I know that might sound crazy, but for those of you who know me, I go there a lot. And I was no, this is real. I felt I needed some sign, and I was okay, I'll do that. And I went into Shabbos, and I was I still got this. And over Shabbos, I met this incredible woman who's been trying to reach me on Instagram, that she's I have something for you. I met her in the Regency. Did you hear this part of the story? No. Okay. So I try to go to my mother at Shalosh this time. That's usually my time if she's not here for Shabbos. So, that was usually when I spent time with my father. So for me, Shalosh this is always very much connected to that. So I dropped off one of my kids, and the Chama stayed there, and I was leaving Lydia Yitzchak, and I was walking through the lobby. Happens to be I clearly post my kids on Instagram, so people know Lydia Yitzchak's white little hair running around, and she was are you Faigy? And I'm yep, that's me. And she's I've been trying to reach you. I have something for you. And I'm what on earth? She's and then she started telling me her story, that her grandparents were involved in bringing the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin literally during World War II to America by boat, paid for their ticket, and Yochanan Gordon's writing up this whole story, so it'll be in the news, and in the news in the 5 towns Jewish Times. That's I'm getting very excited over here, but and she said, I have a few dollars. She's I used to visit the Rebbe a lot as a kid, and she was telling me about, her family was clearly very involved. Her great uncle was part of the Hatzalah, her other uncle was in the Tatsala went after the Rebbe had a stroke, and she's like, I have a few dollars, but I'm willing to, and I want to give one of those dollars to you because somebody, I know, right? I was like jaw-dropping. Because I feel like somebody who's so invested in Tanya, I feel like you should have a dollar from the Rebbe. And I was like, oh my gosh. And here's a dollar. I'm like, it's pretty crazy. It's insane. It's crazy. And then I just felt like this was like a sign that I should be. No, I didn't even go. And I was like, 1 second. I'm like, the Rebbe held this dollar. Like, I've been going to the aisle for 7 years. Like, I watched countless videos. I've seen people like getting dollars from the Rebbe, and it was just like so obvious. Like, this is literally what I was thinking. And I was like, okay. So then I messaged my boss, my rabbi, and I said, like, not like sadly, because it's not sad. It's not like I'm leaving. I was like, I'm just going on to do a little bit more here. And I felt like, okay, our chabura here is like super, super important. And with this dollar from the Rebbe, I'm going to continue. So that's my story, story time with Faigy, and welcome back. And this is very new to me. So like I'm saying, for the last 15 years I've been in the city, but now it's here. So now you guys are really for sure my friends. And like,
You can't get rid of it.
We can't get rid of it. We cannot get rid of it. And you're like, we also used to do a class and then we do like an activity after and listen to music. So if you want to come hang, we can hang also with Faigy. And then we started. And then I was like, you know what? Now that I have all this free time because I'm not doing it in the city, I'm like, let's do a cooking show. So we started a cooking show with Thank You Hashem today, and I don't know, just like exciting things happening. Like I literally like joined the TYH like Zoom call today, and I was like, what is happening? Like I went from like all like the Olami meetings to like this, and I was like, okay, so it's like a transition for me, and just like the kids are all starting school. I have like one going into first, one going into sixth, one going into high school. I'm like, I'm starting school also. Like so we're in Tanya's school, so here we are. And also, before we go forward, just like one last thing, honestly, like everything that happened with Tanya, I think is, and everything that happened with this whole thing is that like, it all comes down to bittul. Like we talk a lot about bittul, a lot, and it's like making a space within you so Hashem can shine through you. Sometimes we think like bittul is like low self-esteem, like I'm not good enough, no, like, and I realize like the more that we make space within ourselves, like for things to happen, the more Hashem gives to you. So it's not like this story just like came out of nowhere. It's not like, oh my goodness, like the Rebbe all of a sudden sent me a message, like you're good to go. I think it's something that as a group together, like all of you, like if I could cut up this dollar, I would give you all a piece of it, but like I don't know if that's what we're supposed to do. But I really feel very much connected to everybody here and everybody that's listening, because like it's like the more space that I make and the more that you guys are learning, the more it grows. So it's all up to you, and you guys are just these shluchim as well. Like, so keep spreading it. And you know that. That's like always my message. I'm always like a call to action, like this is your job. Okay. So let's get started. We're up to L'chaim. We're up to Perek Yud Gimel, and we've been talking about the Beinoni. I know it's been so long. You know, like those kids, like, did you regress over the summer? Like, I definitely regressed over the summer. Like, so let's like just like chazer like a little bit. Let's do a little chazer. Have you been listening over the summer? Yeah, I know.
Car ride.
Do you feel like you're a part of it? I know. I'm like very sad. I mean, I was very sad that Sarah wasn't here, but you know. She's a Luxor girl. That's what we do. So let's chazer a little bit. We're in the prakim now of the Beinoni. Okay, so we spent one parak learning about the Tzaddik, one parak learning about the Rasha, and now we've got we got like a nice, like the Beinoni gets like the spotlight, so we have a lot of talk on the Beinoni. And specifically now what we're going to get into is like again, this is really what I love the most about Tanya, is like what's the behind the scenes. So we describe like what the Beinoni feels, but what really happens behind the scenes, like in his day-to-day moments and life. Okay, so what's the Beinoni? What does he have? Struggles. Yeah. Are they outside struggles, inside struggles? Internal struggles, right? And what does he look like on the outside? He almost looks like a tzaddik, right? It's somebody that perfected himself so much that even though he has inside struggles, on the outside, he's always perfect. If he messes up once, what is he? He's a Rasha, right? So remember, like at the ends of the Rasha parak, we're all like, oh my gosh, we're all Rasha. And it's like, no, we're not. We all have tzaddik-like moments. We all have, sometimes we say, I know, you're like, so I was like, I'm not sure. But really what we're striving to do is to be that Benoni. So how do we get to that place of understanding what the Benoni is? We have to know that the Benoni did not wake up like this. He did not wake up perfect. He needs a lot of work, and it's something that he's constantly working on. It's not perfection. Perfection is the tzaddik. A tzaddik, why is a tzaddik perfect? He was born that way, literally. Like, he was born that way. He woke up that way. He doesn't have the struggles that we have, right? And there's two types of tzaddik, right? We said there's tzaddik gomer and tzaddik she'eno gomer, right? Some tzaddikim have it a little bit more, some have it less. But a Benoni is constantly struggling. I had this conversation with somebody. I went to go pick up my wig this morning, and somebody said to me, she's like, you're so good. You always let your kids like on like the counter and like cook. And I'm like, yeah, like this is what I do. Like okay, fine, it was Tamar Gavin. She was like, do you like yell at your kids after? Like, I just want to know. And I'm like, you think that I'm like a perfect Benoni? Like, in my mind, I'm like, yes, of course sometimes I yell at my kids, but like I try not to. Like, if they don't like, peel their finger off, like, what? Right, especially the travertine. I'm like, do you want to ruin that or not? No, but the truth is, like, it was such an interesting thing when she said that. I'm like, yeah, because this is something that even if we're feeling it inside, like, yes, I want to scream at my kid, and yes, I want to yell at my kid. What do I have? What's that first Tanya tool that we learned that the Benoni has? Yes, control. Yes, impulse control, right? No matter what. And everybody's born with it. Everybody has impulse control, right? Everybody, even if they think that, what? So you're practicing.
Yeah, it's in my brain works.
Your brain works? Yeah.
Who knew?
Who knew at this time of the year? So the Benoni has to constantly work on this. He does not wake up like this. The tzaddik does, but the Benoni doesn't. So, yeah, sometimes I have that urge to want to yell at my kids, but I have impulse control, and I say, 1 second, my brain rules over my heart. I can control myself, especially when there are people outside. I can for sure control myself. Remember I told that story? It feels like a month ago, where like I was like, there was an encounter where I was losing my control, and I saw somebody. And the second I saw somebody, you could just flip right back, right? So now the question is, and this is why I love this parak of Tanya, is because the way that we're describing the Benoni, it's almost like, okay, that sounds like somebody who has super good impulse control. But what we're going to find in this chapter is that it's not just impulse control, and that's a great skill. He has somebody on his side. He has Hashem on his side. I'm waiting for my sister-in-law to come, Aviva. She had this like one line in her play. It was that we have Hashem on our side. That was like her only line in the play. So that became like our family's mantra. Like, we have Hashem on our side. And I'm like, the Benoni has Hashem on his side. As much as he has, good impulse control, and he can control himself. Maybe sometimes, kids who don't have impulse control, they take meds, right? As much as it's impulse control, don't think that it's just that itself. He actually has Hashem on his side to help him get through it. So that's what we're going to kind of learn in this parak. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Okay. At one time you said kids that are like super ADHD and stuff are like closer to like bringing Mashiach or something. I feel like that's like the opposite.
Ooh, that's very good. So when we talk about the kids who are ADHD and sometimes find themselves like a little bit lost in the clouds, no impulse control, right? That concept of like ADD is like, I feel like I've sent it to the class. I'll send it to the chat, the ADD prophets, where ADD and like imaginative, creative faculty is very much connected to prophecy, to nevuah. And we don't have nevuah anymore, but because they are able to think outside the box and don't see things just black and white, they are more tapped into divinity. They're like, 1 second, I know that there's another person in this world, even though we can't see him, they know, because like they make up stuff. Those kids who like daydream and like talk to themselves. You're always like, where are you? It's funny, I guess I say it so much to Nahama that yesterday we were in Grand Park and she was trying to get my attention to go somewhere, and I was like, whatever, I was on my phone, or I was like talking to Ellie Malach, and she's like, Ma, focus. We have to go to that side of the park. And I'm like, what did you just say? And then I realized that it's like me, like projecting, like I'm always saying it to her. Kids, you pick up everything we say, right? So the fact that their lack of focus means that they're tapped into something deeper than just the black and white. So in that sense, they're closer to Hashem, and they're maybe of neshamas of tohu, neshamos that, let's say, are of chaotic souls. like chaotic souls, the kids that are rule breakers and they don't fit inside the box, their neshamas came to this world first. They're more connected to their nefesh Bahamas that came first. Now, what we're talking about here, impulse control in terms of the Benoni, is just in his everyday interactions that he has in his life. Can you control yourself and or you can't? So not necessarily in school, like can you control yourself? Can you sit still? Can you focus? More like when I'm in the arena of do I make a good decision or a bad decision, which one do I go to? So, but you might get your answer here. Okay? Any other questions on review before we go in? No? 13. Parakid Gimel. Okay, so so let's go like this. So it says Ubazeh Yuvan Lashon. So it's still talking about the Benoni, and it starts to reference things that we said in the beginning. So in Parak Aleph, I don't know if you remember this. I clearly don't. I have to go back. In Parak Aleph, we said a lot of big things that we unpackage later on in Tanya. So one of them is this idea of. We're going to go back now to the first parak, and we can understand what this is. Okay, so it says like this: Ubazeh yuvan l'shon maimer rabosenu zechronam levracha beinonim zeh uzeh shoftan. That in the case of beinonim, in the case of in-betweeners, what do we have? Perish yitzer tov or yitzer hara. Dechsiv ki yamod lemin evyon lohoshia mishoftei nafsho. That the verse says that remember we said this idea of when you come down to this world, you should be a tzaddik, not a rasha. Remember those? We didn't even really talk about the Benoni. We started talking about the Benoni. Basically, the way that it describes the Benoni is that there's the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. You know that imagery of a cartoon of you're about to do something and it's boom, here comes the red guy with a pitchfork and he's like, ooh, you should go eat that candy even though mommy said you have to first, eat dinner. And then the good guy pops up. I don't know, that should be the worst thing that comes up. I'm sure, what? Hercules, yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking of. And then you have the white angel with a halo and it's glowing and it's no, Faigy, candy after dinner, right? And it's oh, who do I pick? And these things come up all the time. These things are popping up all the time. And what happens? One is on the right side and one is on the left side. By the way, remember the whole idea of that one is on the left ventricle of your body, of your heart, and one is on the right side, right? So we have these two things that pop up. One's on the right and one's on the left. And what do we refer to them as? We refer to them as shoftim. What's the translation of shoftim? A judge. They are judges as opposed to a moshel. Lo amu zevazem moshlim. We're not saying, the Talmud doesn't say that the Benoni is ruled by those impulses. We're just saying that he's judged by those impulses. What's the difference between the idea of a shofet and a ruler? Let's say a king versus a judge.
Absolute
I'm crickets, but actually we hear crickets from outside.
I feel it's absolute decision.
Absolute decision versus
decision making.
There we go.
Okay.
Absolute rulership of you are going to eat the candy. You don't have a choice because I'm in charge. Or judges saying, okay, maybe I should eat the candy. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should say that piece of lashon hara. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should, right? All those things. It's more of a shofet versus a ruler. So once we know that also, it's a little bit more comforting saying I'm not ruled by this bad guy. I have this bad guy in me. By the way, he's not bad. He's just selfish. He's just an nefesh Bahamas. He's not evil. He's working for the good guy. Remember, we just don't think that the Yetzer Hara is really bad. But this idea that you're not being ruled by it. It says chas v'shalom, God forbid. But merely the Yetzer Hara just judges the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov are judging them in between. So in chapter 9, Parak Tes, we gave this mashal of a small city. Anybody remember that mashal? I feel like it's the first day of school. I'm trying to remember what happened last year. 2 kings. Who's going to rule the city, right? One city with 2 kings, right? 1 car, 2 sets of keys. 1 body and 2 neshamas. Who is getting into the car first? So that's the battle every single day. So every single day when we wake up in the morning, one guy is I'm going to do this, and one guy is I'm going to do that. And by the way, I literally trained myself, and this is something, and if you follow me, I post every single morning a picture of my sitter with my gratitude so that I'm not doom scrolling my phone. And by the way, I hold myself accountable for this. Not every single day, I shouldn't say that. But I try because I'm who's getting in the car first? Gratitude and brachos, or me scrolling my phone, doom scrolling the news, screaming at a kid to wake up for chakras, trying to get my kids onto the bus, like angrily trying to do it, or who's going to get into the car first. And the minute you clear your mind with gratitude or brachos or just even saying moda'ani or singing moda'ani, whatever it is, you put somebody in the car first. So it's like you get to be the judge that morning, okay? So he's a judge. It's like, it almost actually says it's like a panel of judges. I always like, whenever I think of panel, I always think of like school. When they're like, we're having a panel today. Shabbaton. Like, it's like, do you want to be on the panel? I'm always like, what is this? Like, do you have that a lot? Like, I feel like.
No one ever asked.
No? No one ever asked you?
It's like, it was always like the panel.
Right.
The panel girls.
Right. It was like the Chidon girls, right? Like a Camp Shira. It's like, who's going to do the Chidon? Like for Color War, it was always like, I'm like, I'll make up the Color War song and paint the banner. And then there was like the Chidon girls. Like, oh, we have this girl, we're going to win Color War. Because like, she's going to win the Chidon. In Camp Shira, the Chidon was like, it was a big deal. It was like very scary.
Yeah.
I was just doing the cheers. I was like standing on the top with like, you know. Okay, so what does it say? So it says, Ki mishiyesh ezo shlita umemshal yetzer hara be'ir ktana nikra rasha ba'oso. So he's saying that if the yetzer hara gets in there, then like for 1 second, you become a rasha. But remember that you have the ability to flip back right away. How fast can you flip back? Do you remember the mashal that we gave last time of darkness and light? That it's so easy to flip back? Anybody remember that? No? It's okay. It's fine. We're going back to school. Sounds familiar. Okay, so we'll get into it in 1 second. But basically, we have two judges. Who are they? Who's on the panel? The Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. The Nefesh Elokis and the Nefesh Bahamas. They're both on the panel. Those are our two judges. Those are our two, like, opinions. And every single minute, the Yetzer Hara is like, oh, can I come in? And you're like, no. And it's like, oh, but can I come in now? And you're like, no, you can't come in now. Oh, but I have some like really good story to tell you. Sorry, you can't come in. Is it what? Right, your kids at bedtime. Like, can I have one more? Stay in bed. I will bring the drink to you, right? Like, can I skip a bath? Take a bath. Why can't I skip a bath? You skipped a bath last night. Take a bath, right? It keeps trying. Like, you know that little kid who's like, right, kids are a great example, like, of nagging and asking, can I just come in now? Can I come in now? And every single time the Yetzer Hara, it's trying and pushing, and the Yetzer Tov pushes even stronger. And how strong does he push? And this is where we start to see that Hashem is actually part of it, which is really nice. If like you knew that you had like a spare tire, like you're like, it's okay, I can pop some tires because I always have a spare tire, right? Like I can make a mistake once or here or there, but I always will have Hashem on my side. So this is what he says. This is what he says. This is what the Baal Tanya says. He says, "Va'afal pichein yachol lihiyos shelo yiyeh psak halacha kol." That don't even like stress for 1 second, being that there's like another judge that's there. And who's that third judge that comes in? So the Yetzer Hara is always saying, Omar l'daito b'chalal hasmoli. He comes from the left. So the Yetzer Hara is coming from the left and he's like, ooh, I got something good. And then we have from the right, we have the Yetzer Tov saying, I have something even better. And then what happens, and like I love when we also have a Thank You Hashem song of like, one of these songs are like, Bechvodo Uva'atzmo, that in the end, like when, even though like we try as much as we can to fight off every enemy that we have, Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah, whatever, whoever it is, some politician, I don't know, we have all these things that keep coming at us. At the end, it's going to be Bechvodo Uva'atzmo. It's going to be HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bechvodo Uva'atzmo. I'll send the song after. It's just like, it's such a important concept. Like as much as you think you're like, oh, I have a good guy and I have a bad guy, Hashem's like, I'm still on your side. So whenever it says like the words of like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I feel like it's like Hashem coming in his like grandiose version of himself. Like, you know, sometimes we have Hashem, we have Yud Kei Vav Kei, we call Hashem HaMakom. But when it's like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's like, I'm here. Don't worry, I got this. I know how to win Color War. I do this all the time. Every single time you have a battle, I'm there with you. The thing is, we have to show Hashem that we're trying. And if we don't show Hashem that we're trying, Hashem's like, okay, I'm not going to show up, but let me at least see that you're trying. Like, write an alma mater. I'm in like, I don't know, I'm still like pretending that my kids are in camp. My daughter was Color War captain, so it was like, for me, it was like living, that was like my dream. I was never chosen as Color War captain, but she was, and I was like, you got this! I'm very competitive, so I'm like, let me help you with the cheer, let me help you with this, but I'm like, you don't have to worry, you're going to win this. And she's like, Mom, I don't win, like, are you going to kill me? I'm like, no. I'm like, yes, I will. Also, Bina, my younger daughter, was on her team. I'm like, you have to win this for us, do it for the family. Like, this is it. So it's like, Hashem is like, don't worry, I will ensure. Is anybody else such a color war person?
Yeah.
I know, you're like, you didn't realize how competitive I was.
No, I wanted to know if they won.
They did, of
for
course they
Hashem.
won. Yes.
She would never tell the story.
I would never tell story. Actually, second half, my son was in color war, and it was, the two teams were, I cannot believe this. Did you hear about this? Oh, no, it was Ish Mesivta. It was Hasidim versus Litvaks. And I was like, and then my son, Ezreal, was on the Litvish team, and I was like, oh, what is this? Like, me too, I know. He's like, we lost, but it's better that we lost. I was like, you're right. You're right. That will be the only instance where I will let you lose color war. Like, it's fine. Yehuda Friedman, Mary's son, was on the Chassid team, and I was like, this is fine. Okay, this is getting like a little out of control. I can talk color war for like hours. But anyway, Hashem is like, I am the ultimate captain, and I am going to come save the day. So don't worry. So what does he say? And if not, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ozro Ein Yachalo. That basically, the Talmud brings down that if, like literally, like if it was not, if Hashem did not help us, we would not be able to overcome the Yetzer Hara. So it's definitely a lesson in Bittul. It's definitely saying I'm making space for Hashem, because ultimately, as much as I try, I know I can't do it by myself, and Hashem's going to swoop in. Like, we really can't do this on our own. All we have to really do is take the first step, and then Hashem is going to help us along the way. Okay? So it's like a very, very comforting feeling that sometimes people are like stressed out, like I can't do this on my own. And it's like, it's okay. You can do this on your own, and we know who's going to help us. And we know that that other guy is going to keep coming up. Sorry, he's on the right. He's on the left. He's going to keep coming up, and he's going to keep trying to. So it's not, and here's what I was saying in the beginning, that it's not just impulse control. It's not just like, oh, naturally we were built in with this thing called impulse control, and if you don't have it, here, take some Adderall or Vyvanse or whatever. It's not just that. It's you have impulse control that was born within you, but you also have Hashem. So for me, that was like one of the biggest takeaways of this parak. Okay, and what is that? The ha'ezer hu ha'ara shemeir or Hashem al nefesh elokis. And that assistance that comes to us, that help that comes from, it's almost like, you know when like you think you can't do it and then you get this like boost of adrenaline, like you actually do it? Sometimes I feel that at like 5 o'clock and I'm just like, I'm not gonna make it. But somehow I'm like Hashem, like I'm just a camp girl, but like when I come home from work, I just call it night activity. Because it's like, I have to start a whole nother night. Whether you came home from work, or you came home from work, or you came home from shopping, wherever you came home, when the kids start coming into the door, sorry, we're a little bit more like mommy. I hope you're okay with this. A little more mommy friendly here. So it's like when the kids walk in the door, I'm like, night activity, are you ready? 1, 2, 3. That's literally what it is. But we have to show like Hashem that who's coming in to help us. What is this? That assistance is a glimmer of Hashem's light that shines into our divine soul. Remember, what do we have inside of us? Somebody say the words. I'm like, somebody get the chazal. We have to like put chazals up here, like, you know, like those sheets, right? Come on, we have teachers in the room.
I can get you.
You can get me like what's it called? Like a sentence strip? Like,
yeah.
Salam Elokim or Chelek Elokami Mal Mamish, right? That it's an open book test. Like we'll have the words up there. What is Chelek Elokami Mal Mamish? What is that? A piece of Hashem inside, an actual piece of Hashem in Mamashas, right? So it's not like, oh, Hashem has to come down from the 7 heavens, from the world of Atzilos, to come in and like save the day so I don't say Lashon Hara. No, that glimmer, that color war captain, that hero that comes to save in the day is literally right inside of us. It's a piece of Hashem that's shining within us. And then we're going to keep being pushed back by the Nefesh HaBahamis, but Hashem is inside of us, so you just tap into side of who you are. This is like, by the way, the idea of tshuva, like now that we're in Elul, like this idea of tshuva is like, I always used to think like how did you spend your whole month of Elul, like when you were a kid? Repenting, right? I'm like, ache, right? Or like calling your friends, especially like, Aser Smei Tshuva, right? Like, calling all your friends, do you forgive me? Do you forgive me? Do you forgive me? And it's like 1 second. Like, that's a great, like, external way of looking at tshuva. That's like what we call a chitzonius. That's like the external way. But the pneumiistic way of looking at tshuva is that it's inside of us. It's internal. It's me returning to myself. And when I return to myself and I tap into my Chelik Kami Mal Mamish, and now I'll know who's listening to the Elul playlist. We do have homework here. We started off the Elul playlist with the Avodah of music. And what's the Avodah of music and the Avodah of Tshuva? What's the real Avodah of Tshuva? Is tapping into that part of you that's limitless. Who's that? What's that part of you that's limitless? Chelik Kami Mal Mamish. You have a part of Hashem inside of you. And just like Hashem is limitless, and Hashem is not bound by the rules of this world. And Hashem can say, yeah, it might look like Hamas and the rest of the world hates us, because like that's what it looks like, right? I'm really struggling with Candace Owens. Like I used to be a big fan, and now like she dissed the Rebbe, and I was like, no, you don't, girl. Like, don't you dare. And like the rest. And by the way, we can get sucked into what's happening, and then I say, 1 second, we're not bound by those rules. We're not. I know. Okay, I shouldn't have said it because now you're gonna all start doom scrolling. I actually like blocked her on Instagram. They're like, I can't even like see what's happening now. I'm like, I'm a little bit like, I want to see why would Jacobson called her out, and like he's not a confrontational person, but he was like, you don't mess with my Rebbe. But the truth is, it looks like the world hates us, right? And it looks like the anti-Semitism is growing more and more and more and more. But the more you realize that those are rules and regulations that it looks like, and Hashem's like, I'm so much deeper than that. And guess what? Not just I'm deeper than that, you're all deeper than that. And you're not bound by the rules and regulations of this world. And that's where, when you tap into real tshuva, you go back to ground zero. You go back to the first time before you made a mistake. And then you say, 1 second, there's a part of me that never made a mistake before. I want to be that person. And then you're like, no, I make mistakes all the time. Like, I make so many mistakes. Like, I started this Cheshbon HaNefesh now in the month of Elul. Let's see how it goes. It's like a little depressing. Like, it's very, very hard. It's like making lists of mistakes that I did and whatever. And then I'm like, 1 second, but there was a time, Faigy, that you never made a mistake. And that part of you that never made a mistake is inside of you. And if you want to light that up a little higher, just up your spiritual game. Up it. Like, darkness is very thick and very heavy, and this is, by the way, the mashal that we were saying last time, is that a little bit of light can dispel a lot of darkness. And once you bring light into the room, you don't have to pack the darkness away. You don't have to put it in suitcases. You don't have to stick it in a carry-on. You don't have to stuff it into a closet. Like, right before you all came, I stuffed everything into that room because there was like binders over here. We don't have like a set study yet, so like this was like the homework table, so I literally just took everything and I had to actually find space. But when there's darkness in this room because of, let's say, anti-Semitism and because of whatever else is happening in this world, or because of all the Lashon Hara that you thought you said or thought about or things like that, the second you bring a little bit of light, it just disappears. So when it comes to tshuva, as much as you're like, oh my gosh, this laundry list of all the things that I did bad, you bring a little light, you bring a little goodness, you give $1, you give tzedakah, you say hello, you're friendly, you learn, it just disappears. And you don't have to put it anywhere. And they won't charge you for extra luggage. They won't charge you, $150 for extra feet. There's nothing. It doesn't have to go anywhere. It disappears. So too, when it comes to the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov for the Benoni that is constantly fighting, the second you find that piece of Hashem inside of you, you're like, oh, Hashem is going to swoop down and come and save the day. No, Hashem is inside of you. Tap into that nefesh, tap into that piece of the Chelik Kami Mal Mamish inside of you. Once you have that, you're like, oh, okay, now I can win this battle. And you don't have to worry. You don't have to chase the guy away. You don't have to go take his pitchfork and like stab him. Nothing. He just leaves. He comes back because that's his job. He keeps coming back, but you can keep pushing him out. And with the help of Hashem, you're definitely going to win. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. So, have you been listening to our playlist? Yeah? That's okay. You can say no. It's fine. I know everyone's like so nervous to say.
I listened to it.
Listen to it? Okay, I want to hear your thoughts. I'm getting like comments and messages about like, what does this song mean? I'm like, I put it on here so I could get feedback from you, what it means. But okay. So basically, Hashem is coming up. Hashem's going to save the day. Okay, let's go one step a little bit further. Okay, so this is like another part of the parak. This is a very long parak, so we're not going to get through the whole thing. Okay, so the Benoni, let's talk a little bit about the Benoni. The point is not, and I think this is very important to say, and I was listening to Shay's Tao, as I always do, and he was always saying that, like, the Benoni, he's faced with challenges, right? So, like, what's your take on challenges? Meh.
I mean,
Yeah.
I love them, but
Right. We don't love them, but what?
the thing is, you grow.
You grow, right? We grow. Like, if in 1 second, you don't even have to, like, overthink. Every single one of us can think of a challenge that we've been going through or had or maybe currently in middle of, and you're like, this is so hard, right? This is so hard. Would you ever take any of your challenges away? Anybody who's grown from a challenge.
In rupture, like when you connect the dots backwards.
When you
not
connect the
in it.
dots backwards, you're like, would you? I'll go first. Like, okay, if anybody wants, I mean, this dollar from the Rebbe, right? Like I was just talking about this right before. Like I always say, like my first connection with the Rebbe was when my daughter, who's amazing and awesome in first grade and learning to write letters, was very, very sick when she was a baby. And like so sick that like I almost literally was part of this tube weaning program in Virginia that I would like literally move out of my house, pack up I wouldn't pack my family. I was gonna just leave there and go there for 3 weeks. My first connection with the aisle was going to daven for her. And I wouldn't take that challenge away for anything. And I'm not saying the challenge disappeared, but I know that directly from there, I have a connection with the Rebbe, with the aisle, with Tanya. So basically this is all because of her. Like easy, I can say that. It's been 7 years, so now it's very easy for me to say. But when I went I went for brachos and I walked into a room and the Rebbe, the Mezrich Rebbe, straight up, he said to me, like, as I walked into the room, he said to my husband, he's like, oh, your wife has a connection with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I was like, no, I don't. Like, I never met him. I don't know who he is. My family's Munkach. We don't know. But I can directly now trace that challenge back to that. Now, am I going to say, oh, it was too hard for me? I could say that, and I probably will say that. But the point is not to be challenge-free. That's the thing. We don't ask for challenges. When they come our way, the point is not to say, oh, I don't want any challenge in my life. I want smooth sailing. That's not what it is. But when you have the challenge, know that you have the advantage of Hashem on your side. So going into the understanding a little bit more about the character of the Benoni is like he is constantly fighting. He's literally like on a horse with a sword and a dragon coming at him at every single angle. And the second he even thinks he puts it to sleep, it pops up in his dream. You ever have that? Like, you're like, why is this happening? Please wake me up. Like, I know this is a dream, right? And it's there. He's constantly there. But the point is not to be challenge-free. The point is to know that when the challenge does come your way, you're like, I got this. And the more you hit with challenges, the better you get at it. Anybody ever feel that? You're like, I got this. Like, I've been here before, right? Sometimes it's very familiar, but like to know that you got this.
Maturity.
Yeah.
It's like
But
as you
now-
get older, you start realizing that like the things that made you so sad at 15 years old, at 20 you're like, I can handle this now.
I can handle this.
And then at 25, and then at 30, and then you get with age
you really get better. But now here's my question: does your nefesh habahamis get weaker if you get stronger?
I don't think so. You just get stronger. I don't know. It gets stronger also.
It gets stronger also. So let's go back to, we're like, yay, you're like, Faigy, now you're telling me that like, as much as I get over these challenges, it gets even stronger. Think about weights at the gym, right? What happens? You're like, oh, I could do 10 pounds. Oh, I could do 20 pounds. Oh, I could do 30 pounds. So it's like, I have more muscle, but guess what? The weights get heavier. I don't weight train, so I can't really speak for it. I'm not into like CrossFit, but like maybe one day I'll take it on. But the idea of training is that like it grows with you. And by the way, don't even think that it gets old. Don't even think like, as I'm getting old, right? Like as we get older, we're like, oh, we're so mature. And I'm always like, 40-year-olds don't have the same issues that 30-year-olds have. But guess what? They get stronger and they get older and they get wiser. This is not to scare you, so don't get scared, because it really shouldn't scare you. It should actually excite you, because you're like, I'm going in with this, and I know I have a color war captain that's going to help me, and he doesn't have to come from anywhere far. He's actually right here inside of me. Okay, so since the evil of the animal soul is coming from the left side, right, and it's very tempted to like get itself involved in everything, he's coming in, and what does it say? It says, "V'lo nispat b'mi'ot lagabe hatov, v'lo nitcha b'mkomo klal." And that evil is not voided by dilution of good. Like, oh, I'm gonna feed my Yetzer Hara, I'm gonna feed my Nefesh HaBahamis good, and it's gonna go to sleep, right? Like, like a food coma. No, he actually gets bigger when you feed him. Going back to Ellie and the Little White Lie, I think we were talking about him last time, like how he just grows and gets bigger. So that idea of like that voice will always be there with you, but the Benoni exercises this flawlessly. He is like, I got this. You have no idea that inside, it's killing me, things are killing me, but on the outside, I always present perfectly. So I know how to exercise this perfectly. And I know that he's going to get stronger the more I feed it. And the more good I do, it's also going to get stronger. Because there's this idea of like, Zelu Umaseh, like Hashem created the world. The way that Hashem created the world is that everything has to be balanced. So as much as you're learning a lot of Tanya, we're up to like Parakut Gimel, where some of you are on your second round and you're like, I'm so strong. But guess what? Just as strong as you are, your Nefesh HaBahamis is going to grow alongside with you. And by the way, that happens with default. I thought this was so funny. I'm going a little bit ahead, but I just want to tell you this. Like, it says the Nefesh HaBahamis grows bigger because, let's say like you feed, let's say, what does the Nefesh HaBahamis grow off of? What's its like starter? Like sourdough, right? What does the Nefesh HaBahamis feed off of? Negative energy. Actions, but what's that negative? Is there such a thing as negative energy? It's the Sitra Achra, it's the other side.
It's like
A distance from Hashem. It feeds off of anything that's just not plugged into Hashem, right? So if you think about it, food without a bracha is like, ooh, that's fuel for the Nefesh HaBahamis. But even when I'm eating food and I make a bracha on it, as a byproduct, food goes into me. So the Benoni feeds off of that. It grabs onto that and it grows stronger. I know. I'm going to go into my whole Stranger Things thing here. Anyone? Nobody else is a fan. Yes?
Yeah.
Stranger Things. Okay, so one day sit down and watch it, but like watch it like behind, like with your eyes closed because it's like so scary. You're like, I got demagogues, like that's fine. But it's super scary, but that's literally how I see the Nefesh HaBahamis. Okay, so what is this? So now we'll end with this idea over here. So it says, Okay, so Mipnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem is with us, and where's he standing? He's on our right side. Hashem's on our right side because who's on the right side? The Nefesh Elokis. So the Nefesh Elokis is coming from the right side. The Nefesh HaBahamis is coming from the left side. We have to do like a geography lesson here. Like, who's in the left, right? Like, on the left is the Nefesh HaBahamis. On the right is the Nefesh Elokis. Color War Captain is there right alongside on the right side. But because we have these things, what is it? It says, because he's on the right side of the other side, it says, nikra kirasha. Therefore, the Benoni's evil remains as strong as ever. The Benoni has that evil. He's just perfect at controlling it, but he has evil. And he's referred to by the Talmud as kirasha. Okay, so now let's do like a little TikTok lesson. Like, what does ki mean? Like. Now, if you forget that one letter ki, like that one letter kuf, all of a sudden you're like, I'm a Russia. But we're saying you're not a Russia, you're like a Russia. Why are you like a Russia?
You're external.
You're
looking
like a tzaddik, but where's the Russia? Your internal, your emotions, your insides are like a raging Russia. Like we always think like, oh, a Benoni, right? We always say this. I always like try to say like, a Benoni is not the Benoni that you think right before Rosh Hashanah, like one good deed, one good, no. A Benoni is somebody who's literally is Kir Russia. He is literally like a Russia. Inside of him, he needs help from Hashem and he needs help from his Nefesh Elokis all the time. He's like a Russia. So we have to think of ourselves similar to a Russia. This goes back also, by the way, to the beginning of Tanya, where we said that even if you think you're a tzaddik, you're actually a Russia. You know the second like someone tells you like, oh, you look so good, and you're like, oh, thank you, I lost a lot of weight, pass me that donut, right? Like, okay, like muffins, right? Like on me, because I'm like, oh, I look good, right? So the second that you think that you look good, you're like, oh, I don't have to worry anymore. So the same thing is here. It says, don't ever for 1 second see yourself as a tzaddik. View yourself as a Rasha. But you're like, but a Rasha's a really bad guy. But then you're like, no, Tanya tells us Rasha's not a really bad guy. Rasha's just a selfish guy. So I think of myself as selfish, and then I remind myself, no, I'm not selfish. I have Hashem. I have an Nefesh Elokis. I want to connect everything that's physical back to Hashem. So, lo lahamin ha'olam she'omrim. Do not believe the world's opinion that says, she'harasha, don't believe the world's opinion that you're a tzaddik. Don't let anyone ever tell you, and this is going to go against everything paying to Hashem, because we say that everybody's a big tzaddik, and we're saying don't say you're a tzaddik. But a tzaddik, I feel like I need Mary here to remind me, is that a tzaddik, a Tanya tzaddik is different than every yid's a big tzaddik, right? Okay, so don't believe the world's opinion of saying that you're a tzaddik, because that would mean that the evil within you is voided by the good. That would mean that if you're saying someone's like, oh, you're such a tzaddik according to Tanya, and then you're saying, I have no struggles. That's not me. I have struggles. I have a lot of struggles. And the second that you start thinking like, oh, I'm a tzaddik, you're like, no, I have a nefesh habahamis. I have a yetzer hara that's constantly telling me to do good. Remember, the tzaddik, according to Tanya, doesn't ever feel the need to cut class. Like, he never makes a mistake. He never eats before Havdalah. He never eats Friday night before Kiddush. I'm very, very careful now in shul, like, to wait for Kiddush. Although, you see me, I bring my iced coffee to shul, so I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But either way, the idea of seeing yourself as a tzaddik is a very scary thought, or someone telling you that you're doing good, because you have to remember that you want the struggles, you want the challenges, because that's really how we grow. Okay, so what does it say? We don't want shehu shemadregas tzaddik. So we're not a tzaddik. We're definitely like kir Russia. We're not a Russia. We're kir Russia. We're like a Russia. Ele yebeinav ki'ilu muso. That's muso shel hara. Who made I can't see the nukudos. Who made takfo uvораso bechlal hasmoli kedoloso. Rather, in your eyes, you should look at yourself as the deep core that evil remains fully inside of you, in your left side of your heart, and it's constantly pumping inside of you, and it doesn't budge for anything. It's there. It's like stuck on your left side, and it's constantly trying. You have to imagine it like he's constantly here on the left side. He's constantly saying, "Can we think this now?" And he like sends a message to the brain. And then the nefesh kiss that lives in the brain says, "No." He sends a message to the heart and says, "No, we can't think that." And then he's like, "But can we think it now?" And he's like, "No, now you can't think it." So it's like up and down. It's this constant flow, and that's really how the blood in your body pumps all around. So it's really like a cool anatomy class. So on the contrary, not only has your animal soul saying like, the whole idea of this animal soul is it gets stronger as you get stronger, because your impulses to do good is very strong, then your impulses to do bad, not bad, to do selfish things is going to get strong also. So you're in your body, like you think you're just sitting here and you're like, yeah, this is good, but inside of you, you're like, there's this raging thing that's trying to get messages to your brain, and then your nefesh kiss says, quiet down, like simmer down, like don't act out of your emotions, act out of your brain. And what's that tool? Moshat Alev. That's going to be our second sentence strips, right? Okay, so as much as we think that like maybe as we get better and we get stronger, we're like maybe we weakened it, on the contrary, no. He actually gets stronger, he builds more muscle, but also we have Hashem on our side. Hashem's helping us, and he's going to help. And just like your nefesh habahamis gets stronger, your nefesh kiss also gets stronger, but it's going to constantly be fighting it. And the truth is, really, the Beinoni has to understand who he is. Like so many times, like we have inner voice. Do you have inner voices? Anybody else? Or is it just me? Like that movie, Inside Out, which is like amazing. You watch it? Oh, yes. I'm like anybody in like mental health or anybody dealing with any teenagers or themselves, whatever. Everybody should watch it. We should do movie night. Children, teenagers, adults. Let's do movie night, okay? See, we're gonna channel some OME energy. We used to do movie night.
We watched Mean Girls.
We watch Mean Girls.
It's very different.
By the way, we could do that, and we can be like, those are the nefesh habahamis of the world, right? Like you can't sit with us, okay? But we'll do Inside Out. By the way, I think Inside Out's a great movie night. Let's do that. Popcorn. We get a projector. You have one? Okay, let's go. Yay! So what's that whole? Does anybody know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Inside Out? Yeah. So it's like the brain is like thinking things, and like when they become a teenager, they start all of a sudden they start feeling like anxiety and all of these things. It's amazing, but that's really what's happening inside. But the point is here in this parak is know your inner voices. Be able to and we'll end with this thought. Be able to identify the voices that you hear inside of you and know where they're coming from. Now, don't say, oh, that's evil, that's a bad guy. No, that's a challenge. Can I quiet that challenge? Of course I could. I have a nefesh kiss. My nefesh kiss is not so strong today because he couldn't find the keys to the car. And the nefesh habahamis took it. So then you say, okay, I might not have the keys to the car, but I have Hashem. Okay, I have Hashem. Hashem is stronger than any challenge I've ever thought that I can't handle. And guess what? Hashem gave me that challenge. So now that I know that I have a third judge and there are no rulers, there are just judges, I'm okay with that. But I just want to know where that voice is coming from. Is that voice coming from my brain? Is that voice coming from my heart? When it's coming from your heart, it's when it's coming from your brain, and when it's coming from the Chelik Elokami Mal Mamish, it's Hashem. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we have three people in the picture. We have these 3 parts to us, and we just have to know who's talking. And just knowing who's talking like helps so much. Like anytime you think you're about to do something, you're like, who's that? Like, what was that? Don't try to get me to do anything bad. And then you're like, no, I'm really, like, and the Nefesh HaElokis wants to be enclosed, right? Remember, like, we spoke about that, the 3 levushim, right? The Nefesh HaBahamis is like, give me the keys to the car. Let me get into every aspect of your life. Let me become your thought, speech, and action, right? It like wants to take over. And you're like, and by the way, sometimes it does. Sometimes it enters one of the faculties. Sometimes it enters your speech. And you're like, shoot, why'd I say that? But then you're like, okay, let me counterbalance that with some Torah. Let me learn. Let me apologize. Let me remember that I'm not bound by the rules of this world because I have a chelak al-kamim mamash inside of me. And I can always change. And I make mistakes. And trust me, I make a lot of mistakes. And we all do. But we know that bringing that Nefesh HaElokis in is that glimmer. Like I love the way that, like the Tanya said it. It's like it's that glimmer inside of you. It's that light inside of you. Good and positivity is always, like the analogy is always light. Evil is always darkness, right? Because darkness like engulfs you. But what's the advantage of light over darkness?
A little bit of light dispels a lot.
A little bit of light spells a lot. Next one. That's the next line. A little bit of light spells a lot of darkness. That's really what it is. And that light comes from inside of you. Okay. Any questions? Thoughts? Yes?
So what happens when you lose the battle? Like Hashem did not help you?
So that's a very good question. Does anybody here want to answer? When you lose the battle, did Hashem not help you?
I feel like the hero, like, trumps all.
The chira definitely is a big part of it. We have to show Hashem that we are trying in order for him to come in. Think about it like Hashem is inside of us, right? So we have to find the good within us, and then that will come. But if we don't even try, by us trying to win the battle, we're showing Hashem, we want you on our side. You know, like Red Rover? Okay, Red Rover, we call Hashem right over. We're like, come on over to my team, I'm trying. But like if you're not even trying, Hashem's like, I can't be in the picture here. You're not trying. Because what's the analogy of the Nefesh HaBahamis? The Nefesh HaBahamis is selfish. The Nefesh HaBahamis wants to plug in to all your resources and suck everything out. Sorry, I'm making him like he's so evil. He's not really so evil. But it wants to draw out Hashem. So if he draws out Hashem, then how could Hashem come in? The whole idea, what's another name for the Nefesh HaBahamis? Sitra Achra. What's Sitra Achra? The other side. So he's saying, I'm on the other side. I don't want Hashem on my side. We don't call Hashem right over to my team. We call that, like I always think about Red Rover, I always call like the weakling kid because then we get that another kid on our side, right? Like I'm not calling the big guy over. Like I'm not calling that big one over because then I know they're going to break through. So the Nefesh HaBahamis is saying, and the Sitra Achra is saying, we don't want Hashem on our side. So the more you fall for the Nefesh HaBahamis, the less you'll be able to see Hashem. But the more you strengthen yourself and say, I want it. And physically, literally, verbally say, I want it. I want a connection with Hashem. I need Hashem. That allows you to help win the battle. Now, if we lose it,
Who's to say like what it means to lose it? Maybe you think you lost it, and like
that's
your
a
effort
very
counts.
good perspective.
Or like sometimes you ask Hashem for something and the answer is no. Or like a door closes and another one opens. Like you don't see the bigger picture.
Right. So we don't see the bigger picture. So I love that answer. But also, never to be discouraged if you lose the battle. Because the next second you can step up and do good. And that will counterbalance all of that. Does that answer you? I feel like so many times discouragement derails us. I mean, like, I can't do this. Like, ever have this? Like, I do this to my kids, and I'm like, well, why can't you just do this? Because I don't know anything in school. I can't do any homework. Okay, listen. You might not be good at what? That's Yeyush, right? Ain't Shem Yeyush. See, we're bringing Rabbi Nachman in. We're gonna have to bring Rabbi Nachman in. So, like, I'm sure Rabbi Nachman about Tanya, like they came across. But the whole thing of discouragement, failure. The biggest problem with failure is not the actual thing that you did wrong. The biggest problem with failure is that you forget to plug back in. So you fell out of the outlet, let's plug back in. And that will be even stronger. And never let these little discouragements, and this is where like I personally struggle with the Cheshbon Nefesh because like, how does this not derail me? Like I'm saying all these bad things that I did and I'm just like, I'm gonna give up. But that's like the person who ruined their diet for breakfast and then just goes out to every single restaurant on Central Avenue because I'm gonna have a cheat day. Cheat days are the worst things, right? You have a cheat moment, but but after that, derailing is not good. Does that answer? We need Mary here, I think. Okay. Thank you all for joining. This was so fun, and it's good to have you all back. Okay.